Nation of refuge, Canada, land of the free, Canada, redemption is coming, Canada, fulfilling our destiny.
Welcome to The Good News. My name is Neil Buchanan, and I'll be your host for the next half hour. The Good News is sponsored by the Full Gospel Businessmen's Fellowship in Canada. This fellowship is a worldwide organization. It's made up of men that come from every believing denomination, and there's very likely a chapter very close to you, and you're welcome to call them up and visit and join if you'd like, and explore where God would have you take part in His work around this world. We're going to hear a testimony today from Ken Tetart. I invite him. Thanks, Ken, for coming to share your life with us, and I like to hear a person share their background. What kind of home were you born into, and your brothers and sisters and mom and dad, and where did God enter your life?
Well, I was born in a small town, southwestern part of Manitoba. The stories I heard from my grandparents, because of the time of my birth was January, that it was snowing. And the day that my mother delivered me was a rather stormy day, and I had a ride. My first ride was on a stone boat behind a team of horses.
With no cover?
No cover, no. My grandparents were very involved in the Catholic Church in the area. My parents were raised in that environment also. My dad lost his parents, both of them within a matter of years, when he was late teens, and him and his brothers farmed in the area for a number of years, and then moved not very far away, where the farm that he bought that we grew up on. I went through the Catholic Church system for a while, doing the First Communion, Catechism, their Sunday school stuff for a number of years. Dad started questioning whether the Catholic Church was right or not, and he asked a couple of questions to the pastor or the minister at the time, and he said, don't look into on any of that stuff, just follow what I tell you. And that was the mistake he made, I guess, to my father, is got his curiosity up. When you're told not to do something, that's more what you're going to do. And that's part of what the life I have is, if I'm not told it can't be done or it shouldn't be done, I start questioning it. And it's got me into some troubles once in a while, but it has really opened up my life as it goes. Like I say, I did the catechism stuff, the communion stuff, the Stations of the Cross, and all the rest of the stuff that went with that for up into basically my teens, when we decided to follow a different path. But it was much more in depth, more biblically founded than what I think the Catholic Church is. I'm not saying they're wrong at the time.
Yeah.
I think they've got some truths, like everybody has. One of my personal beliefs is, if we are all reading out of the same book, the story might be slightly different, but the beliefs and the truths are all mixed together, and we will all end up in the same spot at the
eventually.
end. Eventually, yes.
Yeah, I think I agree with that assessment.
So I'd say we were well disciplined. We were taught to work, maybe a little too early. Some people think it's sad that kids on the farm start that early, but yeah, I remember driving tractors by myself around the age of 10, which is probably too young, but at the time, everybody, all my cousins and relatives were doing it.
Sure.
And the whole neighborhood was doing
Yeah.
it. And I think it was just, we were taught to have a responsibility and this is what we were supposed to do or could do and we wanted to do. We wanted
Sure.
to help. And to me, it was exciting to get out on the tractor and, not sitting in front of Dad, but, out there on your own, looking around, seeing what was in the neighborhood, what the soil being turned and thing. And it was part of a exciting thing. One of the little stories that pops to mind is we had a big garden, and I mean a big garden. Mom only used part of it so that the rest of us would play in the other end. And I made fields and plots, and I had them. I had one that was about 6 feet square, and I went to the granary and grabbed some seeds from the thing, and they grew fantastic. And Dad said, I thought that barrel of seed was no good, but he says, you got a fantastic crop out there. And it was seeing the miracle of how things grew and out there. And we did plant that barrel of seed. It was grass seed at that time, and we had a wonderful crop of grass out of that, and I think that was a blessing that the Lord gave us. I understood that the Lord was helping us all. I don't ever remember not knowing that.
So what you learned at the church,
sure.
you did embrace it.
Oh,
that
yeah,
God,
I knew there was a God, and I knew there was a pattern for us. I don't think it would have developed if I hadn't changed the path and went to where I was going. It would have been there, but it was the adventuresome that I needed to move out and work on my own and prove the other stuff. I think that as far as spiritual maturity, I'm further ahead of most of my relatives and including some of them that are in the part of the lay ministry of their church. But I think my understanding and how I look at things seems to be a little deeper.
because of this route that your dad took the lead in.
Took the lead in, and we've kind of followed. He didn't force us to change. He just went about what he was changing, what he was studying, and if we asked, he would tell us. And I found that has worked in my life, that it's better to set the example than to try and jam it down somebody's throat.
Sure.
It works. I've had many compliments from people saying, I know you're religious, but you don't show it.
That is a compliment.
It is a compliment. I didn't think about it at the time until later, but I've had a number of people say that they worked with me, and he said, there's something different about you. I think you're religious, but he says, you're not forcing it. He says, and that thing. And I said, well, I was taught of the understanding if you wanted to get along is to set the example and don't talk about religion or politics and a couple other subjects. And things in life will get along well. You may have your opinion on political things or situations that happen.
Sure.
But, you can express it in a manner that comes out as a story and an idea, but you're not forcing the person to follow that. And leading by example, I think is way better, is taught that I've understood from my workings is way better than trying to get out there and yell and scream and holler and be up on a pedestal. It just doesn't follow right.
But if somebody asks you sincerely, then you're to be ready for an answer.
Yeah, and somebody says, well, how do you know if they're sincere? I said, when the time comes, God will tell you that they're sincere. And you can ask all kinds of questions, but you will understand that this is the opening He's giving you to do that.
Sure. So obviously your dad studied Scripture. Like that's where he was coming up with these curiosity and these questions.
Right.
So then you had that example to follow. You
Yep.
read the Scriptures and you continued that journey.
Right.
And so what's the next step in your journey with God?
We, moving from Manitoba to Saskatchewan and other things, we continued working with this, and we worked with the group that we were in. We were always taught to help. My parents and my grandparents were members of the church, but they also worked with the fall suppers and different groups within the church, and that's what I did with this. And I've always been working behind the scenes, not out there preaching, but back behind the scenes in setup, cleanup, moving things around, storing stuff for them. And to my children, they've done the same thing. It's basically, they followed my example.
Sure.
And they've gone on to, I think, great things. They've all went to school for good. They've done well. They didn't get into major trouble. They had their good and bad days like everybody has, but there was no major problems. There was a couple of times I was upset because they made a decision that I didn't think was right, but I didn't say something. They didn't realize that my son damaged the vehicle one day. He backed out of the driveway and hit a post, and he was so scared that Dad was going to get mad. And I just, it's got a little scrape in it. It'll be all right. And I didn't get mad at him. He said, "Are you upset?" I said, "Yeah, a little bit. It's got a crease in my van. It's kind of, it's something that we want to keep looking nice. But hey, nobody got hurt, whatever." And he was so happy and relieved. And I can see that in the way they work with their children now. It's still the same thing.
Sure.
They're still working with that. They're setting the example, doing fine things. They're basically, most of my children, not all, are involved in the churches that they attend. One of them is on the council. The other one works in the choir. The other one is serving and ushering and whatever else. And so it's how they work. We were all taught to do it. And I think if we set the example for people to be a stepping stone, not a tripping stone, it'll help everybody, like all the young people.
So tell me a little bit more about your own personal relationship with God. How does God work with you personally and direct your steps? And
it's one of those things that you get this little feeling every now and then. It's an inner voice.
Okay.
And you wonder, why did I have that thought? And sometimes it comes to you right away, and then after a while you say, no, the Lord was taking me to a point. He put that thought in my mind of what we should be doing, whether it was take a holiday or go and do something so that we'd be out of the way of an accident. I've had many examples of even helping in our life because I've worked with you before.
Yes.
There was little insights that I got, or thoughts that, why would we do that? Why was I thinking that? And then I got to think, the Lord has a reason. He's going to give us it. We may not see it at that time. We may not see it for years, but He was working with us. He saved us from different types of accidents, and that saving us from an accident reminds me of a story when I don't remember this, but I was told by my uncle and that he'd saved my life. And it was a case of, they were chopping down a tree, and he happened to look around and said, and he walks over and picks me up and starts to walk away. As the tree falls, on the exact spot where I was playing.
Boy, oh boy.
And he said, I don't know why you were so lucky. And I think, no, I wasn't lucky. God had a reason why he wanted to save me, to be an example somehow further down the line.
You had work to do.
I had work to do, yes. The example, be an example, set that and be that work to keep his word going,
Yeah.
however.
Well, I want to give you, Ken, some compliments myself. I've had the blessing of working with Ken side by side, working at physical jobs many, many times. And I just love working with you, Ken. You and I, it felt like you didn't even have to talk back and forth. You knew what to do next, how to work as a team. And I have always appreciated working with you, Ken.
Thank you.
And I've watched you too in your journey through life. And we walked side by side in the same church for quite a long time. And then our journeys took a little bit different road, but we've always kept in touch. So anyway, what would you say comes next in your journey with God? Like you have, you're happy with your children, their choices. You have lots of grandchildren surrounding you.
Yes, I have. Children are doing well. Grandchildren are doing exceptionally well. Like all grandchildren, they're great to the grandparents. I've walked out to Regina Beach where the kids were. We were all meeting one day, and I come walking across the parking lot, and I didn't see this, but the little girl, my granddaughter, happened to spy me coming across the parking lot, and it was just a case of it was Grandpa, and there was a beeline for me. And one of the people standing beside us said, well, you can tell who's her favorite. And I said, yeah, but the other ones are not far behind. And I had about four of the five of them that were, and there was only a couple more that didn't quite, they weren't walking, the younger ones, so they didn't come. But I had them all basically that over talking to me within minutes.
Yeah, that's a wonderful thing to be surrounded by our grandchildren.
Yeah.
It makes life feel very complete.
Very complete.
How about some struggles in your life, Ken?
Struggles? Well, there's been times one of my big problems is I have a very negative thing about certain activities. And one of my comments years and years ago, when Dad commented it was, he said, your favorite comment is it's not going to work. But he says, one of the things is, if you say that, or I say that, you are negative, but you go out and prove that it can be done, and sometimes it's easier if you look at it from the negative side. And I've found that you've got to think outside the box, not always, and part of my life is humor and being a little bit of a jokester. Sometimes I go a little far, but
You like to look on the light side of
light
things.
side, I keep telling some people that I'm lazy because I like to smile because it takes less muscles than to frown. I also, in a couple of places I was working, we were working with certain type of chemicals to do work, and I said, I'm lazy. I like this stuff and my machinery to do the work. I'm just here to guide it. And they all give you a funny look and say, why would you say that? Because we're all here for a purpose. Let's do the purpose that we were asked to do or shown to do, whether it's machinery or people or a path to God. He's set this in, it's all set in motion for a reason. We may not know this reason, but we will find out at the end.
Right, and you always sense God's leading in your life, like you're always looking for God to give you the next step.
Oh, always. Opportunities that have come up, you wonder why. And some people say, oh, it's luck. And I look at it, say, yeah, it's luck, but deep down inside in my mind, I'm saying, no, it's not luck. God is doing things this way. And it has got me through a lot of tough times.
Well, I would say that you're a man that has wisdom. And I'd also say, listening to your story, that you have the gift of the ministry of helps, that you're willing to help. And anyway, the audience listening, there's going to be people there that want to start their journey with the Lord. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to lead anyone who is ready for that step in their life. Let's say they're tired of trying to do it themselves. And so if you would just join me in this prayer. Father in heaven, I'm tired of my life and trying to use my own wisdom and struggling on my own. And I understand that Jesus Christ came and He died so that I could have eternal life, so that I could have my sins wiped away, my past sins. And I want help in the rest of my life to help me through the journey of life. So would you please come into my life? Would you please help me with your Holy Spirit? And would you give me the same wisdom that we heard Ken talk about? And show me what my job in life is as a servant of yours. So we ask this in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen.
Yeah, Ken, I have walked beside you a number of years, and I have enjoyed it, and I got to do some things with your father too. He would come out to my farm and he would help me with certain things, and I enjoyed his company and his help also.
Yep.
And I could tell you two have dirt in your veins. You love the land and you love farming.
There's lots of work that can be done. Just look at the way ahead.
Yeah.
Look positive.
So, can you think of any more great stories to throw in here? We got 5 minutes left, and I know you could answer this with 15 hours of answers, but what kind of miracles stand out in your mind?
Well, I've told you part of this story, and whatever it was last year or so ago. I was having, well, it's actually more than a year ago, I was having problems with my health. And when I went to the doctor, I said, there's something wrong. I said, I'm feeling, I'm burning. It feels like I'm on fire, but whatever. So we started checking out what it was. And none of the signs were conclusive to any particular problem until the last test we did before he was going to send me to Saskatoon and other places for problems. And God had a plan that I see now, that after taking that stress test and finding out I had a heart problem, I was complimented on the fact that I come in early. And a number of my doctor, the cardiologist, the statistician that was reading the tapes for the CTs or the things were all complimentary on the fact that I was in good health, except for my heart problem, but that I'd come in early. I had not stayed back and denied my problems. And I went to get checked out. And they said, because of I being there early and she said, the one nurse said, I can sense being around you that you're positive. And in the manner you're talking, she says, you're going to do well.
Right on.
It was that, I don't know, aura or whatever of person that I was emanating, that I was positive and I was sure that this was going to turn out fine.
And it was part of God's plan.
It was His plan. I don't know what all this means right now, but I have been complimented on the fact that I went through surgery well. I've recovered really well. I told my doctor one day that he asked me how I was doing, and I said, excellent. He says, you can't be. You just had surgery a few months ago.
What'd they do to your heart? Sorry.
I had basically 6 bypasses. My chest was wide open, and he says it wouldn't be ugly. It would be ugly. You don't want to see it. But he said we did 6 bypasses.
That's quite a repair.
Repair job, yes. It's not fixed, it's repaired. It's working very well, and I've had good recovery. Both the cardiologist and my general practitioner said, "You can't be great. You had this surgery." And I said, "Well, I am, and I will continue to be that way because God has a purpose for what I'm doing."
It wasn't time to leave.
It wasn't time to leave this world. I'm still on the green side of the grass. But I had changed what I was doing in my life, working for a couple companies that I've since retired from, and I've changed what I'm doing and living with. And I think God's leading us down a path. I don't know where it ends yet, but in the end we'll be with Him, and I understand that in the end we will all be with Him.
Yeah, and my sense is we're to be fishers of men in this last step of our life.
Right, and to be an example. You know, there's lots of examples out there of good people, and there are people that are not setting a good example, but I think in time they will see the light. God will make it available, and most of them will come.
It's better to set a good example in front of them.
Right on.
So thanks a lot, Ken, for sharing.
Thank you. Awesome.
You've been a blessing to me and to
Nation of refuge, Canada, land of the free, Canada, redemption is coming, Canada, fulfilling our destiny. God shall have dominion from sea to sea, the fire of His Spirit we decree. Your will be done on earth, and we shall see our founding fathers' prayers were heard. Nation of refuge, Canada, land of the free, Canada, redemption is coming, Canada, fulfilling our destiny. God's vision for this nation is one of peace, His righteousness prevailing, His holy